Well, I've been a professional illustrator, professional comic artist first and foremost since the mid 2000s, like around 2005, 2006, when I started working professionally. I didn't really start working full time until maybe 2010, 2011, basically once I was out of college. And I originally, the first, I could say, truly big gig I got in the Kaiju universe was with the Godzilla franchise with IDW Publishing in America. And then after that, everything's just kind of spiraled out from there. Well, as a kid, I really like dinosaurs, as a lot of kids do. You know, a lot of kids like dinosaurs, and either they keep liking dinosaurs or they move on to other things. And for me, I liked them so much, I wanted to be a paleontologist, which I have a lot of respect for that field. But I don't like working in the dirt, and I don't like being hot. And the people who can do that, I have nothing but respect for. For me, I'm like, I'm okay, I'm fine. But what really excited me was learning about kaiju, because it was my first exposure to the idea of like dinosaur-like creatures just being in the modern world and interacting with people, you know. So and that's what started, of course, with Godzilla, and then eventually I found Ultraman, and it became this rabbit hole that I just stayed with. What I think made it even more fascinating was learning about Japanese, and by extension Asian culture, which is in many ways so different from the culture I grew up in. But when I was younger, we were bombarded, like me and all the other kids were bombarded with Japanese media. We got, you know, all of our cartoons were from Japan, all of our video games were from Japan, all of our action figures. Power Rangers is a Japanese, started as a Japanese property. That was another huge part of my childhood. So it all kept reinforcing itself. And now, as an adult, I am realizing, I think, a childhood dream of brute forcing my way just into those franchises that I grew up on. Well, like a lot of artists, when you're first starting out, you want to draw like the art you like. You want to draw like the artists you like, and so as a result, I was heavily influenced by a lot of anime and manga, so naturally I wanted to draw a lot of anime and manga style characters. And the monsters, I was heavily inspired by the Dark Horse Godzilla comic books from when I was a kid. And they had artists like Art Adams, and I think Jeff Darrow did some art, did some Godzilla art as well. But and then of course, you know, and I remember there were also these trading cards that came with the Godzilla toys I had when I was a kid from Trendmasters, and those had a very American comic book art style. So as I got older, I started realizing that what I wanted to do was try to create a hybrid of those styles, which nowadays that's kind of, a lot of artists my age like do that style, sort of these hybrid art styles. And that was really what inspired me, were the comic. Mostly it was the comics. It was comics and manga that I read that really inspired me. And the especially in Japanese comics, there was so much energy and so much movement in them. There's some artists that are just like do motion and speed amazingly well. I remembered, again, bringing it around to Ultraman. There's an Ultraman Tiga comic from the 90s that got released in America at one point, and the main artist was Kufuklung. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, because I'm American and we don't know how to pronounce those names. So sad. But his work was I had never seen anything like it. It was so kinetic and so like you really could feel it when Ultraman would punch monsters and stuff. So I really respected that art a lot. So yeah, those are a lot of big influences. My role was helping with the core concept of the design, doing the initial concept sketches and the initial just getting the general idea down. Because I mean, a lot of the heavy lifting was done by Tanaka Sensei, and the modelers just did a great job on it, translating what was, in retrospect, my initial design was very comic booky and very cartoony, and they translated it so beautifully. But yeah, I came up with the core design also based on Stanley's input. If I remember correctly, the core pitch was embodying Ultraman as a protector. And the idea popped into my head of this wave of monsters, just like this, like almost like like a wave in the water, just coming at him. And I was like, well, how do I represent him? It's one thing to put a hero just facing down a group of bad guys. Like that's one image that conveys a specific idea that of the hero being brave, but the idea of Ultraman being a protector is really core to the character. And then it just this idea just popped in my head. It's like Pigmon. I just put Pigmon there, and you know, Pigmon is he's such a cute little helpless creature. I have friends who actually think he's kind of scary and ugly, but I think that he's cute in an ugly way, so it makes him appealing. Because the original design was a villainous creature, Garamon from Ultra Q. It's a monster, but I think that speaks to how a lot of classic kaiju are actually kind of cute by modern standards. So anyway, so it just was like, the idea just was like, okay, that's what it'll be. And I sent it to Stanley, and he liked the one of the Specium beam the most. We conceptualized this so long ago, and I had so much happening at the time that some of the details are a little fuzzy, but it's entirely possible that Stanley had given me a list of monsters that were like priority monsters, but that core group, Red King, Dada, Gomora, Naranga, Telesdon, Zeton, Baltan, Bemlar, those monsters are probably the most popular from the original show. And I wanted to stick to the original show's cast. And there are some really interesting monsters in that show, you know, guys like Seabos, or I think his name is Griffin. There's a couple of monsters that are really unique and interesting, but these guys are these are the classics, and these are the ones that people immediately recognize as Ultraman monsters. And one thing I always like to do is I always like to give Red King a rock. He's such a bully. The idea of him always throwing a rock or getting ready to just chuck a rock at somebody is very him. It's very Red King. So, as opposed to like Gomora, who is a very sympathetic monster. Like, he's very powerful, but he didn't do anything wrong. He was so poorly treated in that episode for no reason. He got dropped on his head. They did leave him just leave him asleep. It's just, anyway. I think, if I remember correctly, what my approach was Gomora and Naranga are subterranean monsters. They're burrowing monsters. So they can physically be lower than the other monsters because they're coming out of the earth. And Telesdon, too. Telesdon, you know, he just kind of gets wedged in there. Baltan, Bemlar, and Dada they're very vertically oriented. They're very tall, so you can just kind of either put them in the back or put them towards the center. Because Red King again is a bully, I wanted him to be very domineering in the background. He's like really bringing up the rear. And then Zeton, I wanted in the back because he's very threatening, and I wanted him to be just lurking in the background because he's the final enemy for the series, and I had that energy of this looming threat. And I believe that was my reasoning. It also could have very easily been totally subconscious. And I was just like, I don't know, get this guy here. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to kind of squeeze them all in there. It was, from my perspective, it was wonderfully easy. It's XM is a very, just, y'all seem like a professional, very, very professional company. I really enjoyed the freedom of getting to kind of just cut me loose on it. I just kind of did it how I wanted to do it. I think I only got like maybe one note from Subaraya, and I think it was, I think I drew Zeton a little too beefy, too muscular looking, I think. And they were like, well, he's a lot more slender than that. And, trying to keep them on model when drawing them is honestly a little difficult, because I want to give them a little more animated fluidity, and that's just part of my style. I just love the fact that they kind of cut me loose. I did this drawing and just had fun drawing Ultraman and the Kaiju and stuff. And then I basically blinked, like some time passed, and then I saw the final statue, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yes, that's mine. And Fujimoto sensei and Tanaka sensei, I mean, they knocked it out of the park, because they perfectly captured the feeling of the suits, but in this dynamic environment that I envision them in. So it's a perfect marriage of the styles. So that's, and like I said, everybody I've talked to at XM, y'all are all so nice. And so, I really look forward to working with you guys more. Well, most recently, I had a very exciting project with a veteran Ultraman director and producer named Takeshi Yagi. Worked on a project called Enquiries, which is part of a tokusatsu film class. It's a technical class about the creation of tokusatsu, and that's through Naro TV. Which they do a ton of classes on, on different Japanese artistry and different Japanese fields, things that are unique to Japan. And we did a tokusatsu course, and Yagi-san asked me to design the giant hero, sort of a Ultraman style character, or a heroine. It's actually a female hero. And that was a really special experience, and it will be available on their website soon. On Naro, I think Naro.tv, and I'm very excited about that. Hopefully, if it gets a lot of support, we can hopefully maybe make something else out of it. In addition, I did a comic coming out called Spectre-Man Heroes. The first few issues are already out. It's centered around the characters from P Productions, which was a old production company in Japan, who did, again, a lot of great tokusatsu shows like Lion Maru and Tiger 7 and Spectre-Man. I was the chief creative force behind issue 5, which comes out in America in February, but it's out in Japan right now in Japanese. The whole thing is out. There's a couple of projects that I'm working on on the Godzilla franchise right now. I just did some exclusive Gigan merchandise designs for the Godzilla store, and I'm working with IDW again. Oh, last thing. You might be able to see my Ultraman pinball machine in the background there. I just recently got to show off the artwork I did for Spooky Pinball. That's the company. We did a Scooby-Doo pinball machine, so I got to do all those characters and stuff. So that's coming out at some point. So yeah, those are the things that come off the top of my head right now. My core website is mattfrankart.net. And through there, I have links to a lot of my other things. I am on Instagram, MattZilla85. I don't know how long Twitter's going to be around, but I'm SpankZilla85 on Twitter. It's an extremely mature name. And I literally made that name because I didn't think my Twitter was going to matter. And so I did it anyway. We have fun. We have fun over there. People can also follow me on patreon.com/MattFrankArt, where I'm focusing a lot on a original kaiju comic series that I'm working on. I can't talk about the title or the publisher just yet, but it's going to be really, really cool. Also, Heroes, I also have been working on Miss Medusa's Monstrous Menagerie, which is another original comic project, and I want to make sure people know about that too. And I think that's everything.